We know and have proven scientifically that we can copy any frequency that exists. For example, a molecular frequency of a vitamin C pill, of a healing plant. If we can change our frequency state, that is what we invite into our lives.
We need to understand first is that we're all energy and frequency to begin with, but we're not just solid meat bags. We actually are energy and frequencies.
Our bodies are provably quantum systems. We've finally proved it in living brain tissue inside people's brains that all the proton spin changes with your heart rate. We are quantum at our very core.
5G, 4G, Wi-Fi, etc., which act destructive or harmful to a physiological organism. We know that about us, right? But it's also true for plants and for animals.
What is the single most convincing piece of data you've seen demonstrating that quantum energy really directly affects biology?
You're listening to The Human Upgrade with Dave Asprey.
Philipp, we've been friends for a long time, and I've been a supporter of your stuff because you use science, even though a lot of people will say it's woo. I think there's overwhelming evidence that you're doing something that really, really works, which is why I'm willing to put my reputation on the line, talking about it and even endorsing it. 'Cause it's real. In fact, I'm wearing a Lila Quantum right now. Since you've been in the field for so long, why do people have so much resistance to energy medicine?
So that's a great question. And I must say, it's amazing to see in the biohacking space that I don't really see that resistance anymore because people get it. People start to understand that we're energy and frequency to begin with. And they realize that and they're very open to it. And then they feel it. And then they look at the science and it works. But I think there's a vast majority of the people out there that for them, it's a territory that is not known. It's sort of the unknown because people, if you're a mathematician, for example, you can calculate all day long. You feel very comfortable in that terrain. But if it gets into the inner world, they feel insecure at first because they don't really get it. They don't know how to interact with their inner voice and all of that. So that's maybe the fear of their own inner power. And partially it's the narrative of the past that told us, well, it's all as physical. We're just meat bags that run around. And it's this feeling of the unknown. I think those are the three aspects. And people need to move through that in the next 5 years. And who doesn't, it's just going to be getting really tough washcloths in the face that are very, very cold because it's the time right now that we realize our own inner power again.
That has to be a European analogy. A tough, cold washcloth to the face.
That's what we got when we were little kids and we didn't want to wake up. Exactly. And everyone in Europe knows that.
I got it. So for Americans, we just use pepper spray. It's so much faster.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just a little different. Wake up. Okay, maybe not. And for the record, I have never used pepper spray for parenting, but I have made jokes about it because we've all thought about it one time. All right. It feels like somehow we've learned that we have to get permission from someone else to pay attention to or to believe what we're experiencing in our inner state. Where do you think that came from?
That's a deep question. I think it comes from the narrative of the past. And it's probably also the narrative of the present still, right? Because too many people still look up to someone to solve their problem and to take that into their hands and to give up their own, whatever they know to be true. They give up the decision-making to someone else. And I think that's just part of how the world moved in politics and in many other places. And it's about time that we reverse that because, what we know to be true, we should follow that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. In my new book, In Heavily Meditated, I talk about intuition and how important that is and how to identify it. And what seems to be happening is when people try Lila Quantum, intuitively, I feel better. And I woke up and I felt different, right? And then another voice in the head comes in, and I think I know where that comes from. And it says, oh, that can't work, therefore it doesn't. And so that's nonsense thinking. That's big pharma thinking, right? This is someone saying, I had direct evidence of something happening, but I don't believe it can happen. Therefore, I will not allow myself to see it. Is there a technique that you use personally to overcome your own bias?
That's also a great question. So, yes, indeed. So if there's something where I feel, okay, I need to really stretch my thought and my perspective, I try to take the point and the position of the opposite perspective and just stick with it for a little bit and stay there. And then I can go back to my own standpoint, and then I can look from both perspectives. That's what I suggest to do in general. Yeah.
I like to ask myself, the original question there, is it true? And what do I have to believe in order for that to be true? And what I find is usually there's an assumption that I haven't questioned, I haven't tested. And one of the biggest ones is there's only one cause for autism. There's only one cause. What evidence do we have there's one cause? It's that there's only one cause for pizza. Like, well, I think you have to have a recipe to make pizza with different ingredients in the right order, with the right heat and all the other stuff. So I don't know all of the assumptions that I've made that are untested and probably aren't true, but I know there's some in there. So when I find myself working on accepting something that could be possible or could be complete nonsense, I'm always walking that line. And if you blunder too far into the land of meat robots, then life sucks and you live in your head and you don't feel anything except for angry, upset, disconnected, and all those kinds of things. But if you go too far in the other direction, then that's what they call the land of the lotus eaters. And, then you're the yoga teacher who can't show up to your own class on time because you were flowing, right? And you're dysfunctional in the world. And so to keep one foot on each side has been my practice, where I've done the shamanic training and all the energy stuff that's in my new book. That includes a willingness to consider what you've built and say, okay, does it work? Right? And do I experience that it works? And is there other evidence in case I have a bias here? So it's like 1 foot in the esoteric, spiritual, emotional, mystical, and even irrational, and 1 foot in the hard science rational. And if I can maintain that with feeling safe going to either side for a brief period, it seems like I can get more truth out of the world. And that was why when you first reached out years ago with Lila Quantum and said, check this out, I literally to myself said, I have a drawer full of weird ass pendants that people send me and stickers and bracelets. And my experience has been that the vast majority of them don't really do very much, but that the people who create them sure want them to do things. And so I'm like, great. Lila Quantum's probably one of those. But you were persistent and you kept coming back. Well, I actually have data. I'm like, all right, I got to try this thing. So I tried the pendant. I tried the cube, and actually I travel with it. I've traveled one for the past 5 years in my luggage, the small travel size cube, because you have overwhelming scientific evidence and I perceive that it works. And in the face of scientific evidence, I'm willing to do something that I don't perceive, because there are many things we don't perceive. And I think with Lila Quantum, I have no issues doing it. And it would have been easier for me, Philipp, to just be like, thanks, your stuff works. I'm not going to talk about it because it makes people question whether I'm crazy or not. And that would be out of integrity from the way I run my life. Hey, if I think it works, I think there's good evidence, I'm going to share it, even if maybe, I'm going to take some hits for it. I don't care, right? Because I think people should know about it. So I'm curating the stuff that has merit. And so you've built some really cool stuff. And what I want to know, what is the single most convincing piece of data you've seen demonstrating that quantum energy really directly affects biology?
There's not the single one. There's double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled research in regards to the blood with statistical significance, which blows everyone's minds when they see it happen, and actually did the same thing with the investigators of those labs because they thought it couldn't work, which is a great situation for us. If you have investigators that try to prove it can't work, but then they find out it does work, that's quite significant.
That's the best. Yeah.
Cellular function, done by the University of Tulsa, Dr. Robert Schief, an expert in ATP production studies and wound healing studies with actual human cells. He ran 8 different studies, each of them statistically significant, proving that ATP production increases in actual human cells, randomized double-blind, and that wound healing accelerates by 46 to 100% if exposed to our technology. And those were just basic settings, I must say that. We didn't, so we have the capability to even increase that with specific frequency settings. And now we're moving into brain research as well. So those 3, I would pull those out and say, that is the most important stuff you should look at. We have tons more, like the clinical trial with 42 autistic kids and things like that. But those 3, I think, are very fascinating.
Okay, I love that. That is really strong evidence, and people can just argue. We've been using the gratitude frequencies at 40 years of Zen because gratitude's a part of the reset process. And so all of the graduates of Zen get one of the cards, and they're $179 a piece, I think. And
145.
145. All right, there we go. But we're gifting those to graduates because if you can carry a frequency in your body, like where does the frequency live? Is it in the water, in the cells, in the cell membranes, in the fascia, in the brain, in the nervous system? Well, it's kind of in all of those things, right? And so I do believe that makes a difference. And one of the things that convinced me there, and again, these are anecdotal, and you have all the hard science too. I have a very well-trained shamanic friend who's just traveled the world learning energy techniques. I was using one of the Lila Quantum cards in my left thigh pocket. I'd had it there for about 6 weeks. And she sat down and she looked at me and she goes, every time I see you, the energy field on the left side of your body, it's different on that side. What is going on with that? I've never seen this in you before, and I don't know what it is. Right. And I thought, I have no idea. Right. I know how to manipulate my field, but I don't perceive it very well. And so I wasn't sensing that. And I thought about it. And I said, well, maybe it's this. And so I took the card out and I set it down. And she goes, what is that? Your field looks like it did before. So she was noticing the effect without knowing that I had done anything. Things like that are not random, and they cannot be placebo because there's no knowledge about it. So same thing. I've shared this on the show before. When you sent me the first cube, all right, fine, I'll use it, but I'm going to use it to put flowers on because it propped them up in the right way. And I had 2 sets of identical tulips. One is sitting on it. One is sitting probably 5 feet away, and they last 3 times longer sitting on top of the Lila Quantum cube. And I wasn't expecting that. I don't think I was doing that with my magical superpowers. Right. So observations like that, I think, matter. And biohackers have learned it's okay to measure my own results and to honor my results instead of discounting my results because I'm not as good as whatever Pfizer's study was or something. So thanks for making stuff that works. And genuinely, I appreciate that. All right.
By the way, while you're looking for the next question, and of course, we're talking about human health and wellness and all of that, right? Biohacking. What about biohacking for pets? So we ran a 30-dog study that was done by the Besa Institute in Austria with 4 different testing methods. And I bring that up because, we're always talking about placebo control, that's so important. And all those human studies that I referenced were placebo controlled, but now taking it to dogs, right? Dogs have no clue. It was done with just Western veterinarian diagnostics with the Besa testing method, which is biosystem analysis based on Decavol, live blood analysis, and surveys of the pet owners. So 4 different ways to evaluate over I think it was an 11-month or 12-month study.
Did you put a pendant on their collar, or did you use the quantum upgrade service?
We used the quantum upgrade. Okay. And we were not involved. That was the research institute doing it. And they had a control group and they had a treated group, experimental group. And the results were phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. Everyone can read the study. It's published on an Austrian nonprofit site in English and German. And it's phenomenal. There was even a dog that was half paralyzed. And that dog, within 24 hours of being in the quantum upgrade, started running. I still have that video.
Wow.
And started running in circles and wouldn't stop because the dog suddenly just had so much energy. It was like an outflow of energy, and the dog was so happy at the same time. I mean, not that this is something that if you have a half paralyzed dog, don't think, okay, you're just putting the quantum organ, that's definitely going to happen. Things like that can happen. But what's important is that overall, all the markers they looked at were significantly better. The blood was better. The energy levels were better. The organ health was better. The digestive system worked better. Anxiety was reduced. I mean, there was anything that didn't improve that they looked at.
So the quantum upgrade is a service that you do, like a remote service. And I know some people are going, well, wait a minute. Look, quantum effects operate at a distance with no lag time. Our bodies are provably quantum systems. We've finally proved it in living brain tissue inside people's brains, that all the proton spin changes with your heart rate. We are quantum at our very core. So that provides a mechanism of action there. But with the quantum upgrade, you can put it on your address. Like, so basically your whole house is quantum charged, and you put it on a person, right?
Or pet.
So you added pet? I didn't see the pet stuff.
Yeah, we've had pet actually for years.
I didn't even know.
You can have a cat, you can have a dog, or you can have a horse. We have actually racehorse owners that use the quantum upgrade.
Do they win more?
Well, they wanted us to not talk about it too much.
And
maybe they don't want the other ones to use it as well.
Okay. I want to get a little bit dark here. Okay. So your stuff works. Now, if you were like Pfizer blended with, I don't know, the CIA and MK Ultra and whatever you'd hear about on Joe Rogan or something, if you blend all that together, couldn't you use this to negatively affect people?
No, the worst that a company like that could do is to steal all of the technology, to shoot everyone involved, and to then hide it in a drawer. So if someone wanted to use it, and then that wouldn't be possible because the technology is already out there. We made sure of that, it couldn't be used for negative frequencies. And the reason is relatively easy to explain. It's nothing we did to the field. I mean, we didn't invent the quantum field anyway, right? I mean, I just want to pull that tooth in case anyone is out there like, oh, that guy invented the quantum field. No, we're not claiming that. We found a method on how to access it and vibrate the ether to make it available in this reality in a fashion not really done before. And if you have such a high concentrated quantum field, naturally, it neutralizes and harmonizes anything that's harmful to life and consciousness on a frequency level. So if I were to choose a herbicide or a pesticide or a fungicide frequency and wanted to add it to the system to let it run, it would instantly be neutralized. So that's just how the nature of reality, kind of. It's the nature of that highly concentrated quantum field. So if someone were to steal it and then they wanted to just put negative frequencies in there, it wouldn't do anything.
Okay, that makes me feel better because I do know for a fact that various agencies around the world have been experimenting with this kind of stuff for decades and decades, and it's in Freedom of Information Act, things like that, and
they can do stuff, and they are doing stuff, but it's a different technology that they're using.
Good deal. There's many different layers of technology there. It's very much like computer hacking. Which is my background, right? And I know you have some telecom background as well. Like, well, are you going to break in through the networking layer, right? Or are you going to break in through the application or the operating system? And where's the vulnerability? And reality has lots of vulnerabilities where you can manipulate people. And so it's good to know that what you're using has a built-in remove the negative, which is cool.
Yes, and you can see, for example, if you look at electromagnetic fields, right? And people underrate the importance of electromagnetic fields and that we look at that because it really is a huge stressor to the human body. And I mean, you said it, I was a VP at T-Mobile for 3 years, and I know that side of the house. I know the research side. I know you and I agree that there's over 1,000 peer-reviewed studies that show the detrimental effects of electromagnetic fields. Now, what I did not know, though, is until we did the brain research with an iPhone 15 next to the ear, simulating a 5G phone call for 30 minutes, what that does to the brain already after, it is so bad. It is, honestly, it is probably the worst I've seen. And one of the experts in Europe running that EEG is the most advanced EEG device on the market in Europe that they use, 256 channels. They did a baseline reading, 10 minutes, then they did 30 minutes, what I just described. People developed headaches right away. The lady would describe the brain waves as before they were flowing naturally. And as soon as you turn on the 5G and that phone, it's as if it's completely in an artificial box. Completely in an artificial box. And then on top of that, everything that speaks to stress in the brain waves got significantly amplified.
Wow.
And everything that's there for a balancing state just got whacked. And that is exactly, and significantly, right? We're not talking marginal changes. And then people did not know when what was turned on and even what was turned on. And then the quantum upgrade came into play. And by the way, again, the investigators in the lab were like, over distance, right? Nothing is going to happen. And they, by the way, they have tested probably 50 different technologies already. And of those, 48 had zero effect. And they usually already after the first test person, they say, okay, we're not continuing with the study because your stuff doesn't do anything.
These are technologies to protect you from
EMFs,
mobile
they
phone or EMFs.
test these stickers and all that kind of stuff where people think that works well. And I'm not saying there isn't a sticker out there that does work, but
it's just hard to tell.
Yeah. So, but they thought, of course, that it's another one of those technologies. And then within the first few seconds of the quantum upgrade starting with the very first test person, the lady was like, oh my God, this stuff is real. Wow. Oh my God, this stuff is real. And she knew it. She didn't have to see all the other test persons. Of course, all the other test persons were done as well. Same thing happened. It neutralized all the stressors in the brain.
Even when they're holding the phone up to their head?
It was same thing.
I'm not going to be doing that.
The phone was right here, half an inch away from the ear for 30 minutes. And it's incredible what happened.
Do you hold phones up to your head?
I do that sometimes, but only if I have to. When I'm sitting in Uber, for example, and I need to take a phone call, I do that. And I'm okay with that because I'm using the quantum upgrade. And by the way, if I'm in an Uber that's a Tesla, for example, I'm putting my quantum upgrade on brain support. And if I'm in a plane, I'm using a different frequency. And yeah, that's how I operate with the quantum upgrade because it can help you. That's the point. It can really help you. And I know that there's a lot of people out there that, got it because you suggested it. And I just met 2 of those at the airport in Orlando when I was flying here. Yes. And they were like, hey, are you Philip? Yeah, I'm Philip. We got the quantum upgrade and it's so awesome. It is so great. And they had heard it from you. So I'm like, yeah, this is fantastic.
It was going out on a limb to talk about that because most people just think that cannot be. Yeah. I know that humans can do that because, lots of the gurus I've studied with have abilities to do that. So why wouldn't we be able to do that with technology? But here's what I want you to do. I want you to pretend I am the most skeptical, hardcore engineer you know. I want you to explain quantum upgrade to me just using physics.
Okay, so I cannot just do it in physics because regular physics doesn't apply. And that is the type of brain that I don't even need to talk to. Like I need to literally pull you out of that world and say, look, you know all your regular physics stuff. Now look into 2022 when the Nobel Prize for Physics was awarded for quantum entanglement work.
Okay, well, quantum physics is physics. Okay.
Yep, but that, it's not the regular physics, like the school physics, because people, I don't think, talk about that in school. Yeah. And that's the first thing to imagine. It's not like a weird idea that quantum entanglement is a real thing. I think we now heard about this interesting chip, also microchip that was done with quantum work. So there's the quantum effects are real effects. Okay. Now, we are able via quantum entanglement to literally entangle the energy of, let's say, a water with a lemon or any other frequency with any other carrier. And distance and time doesn't matter, because in such a high vibrating quantum field, there isn't any distance anymore.
Well, there is no time and there is no distance in quantum reality. They're basically hallucinations we make up because it's useful if you have a body, but we can use math to show that we just perceive them.
Exactly. And we can measure, and that's where the real hardcore proof comes in, right? In any court in the world, in any lab in the world, if there's enough testing instruments, we can prove it comes on literally within seconds. You can see the effects, and you can see the effects, for example, on water, on such technology as well.
Okay.
So it is easily provable. Now, how does that work? How do we do that? Let's say if you wanted to use the quantum, I know you use it already, but let's pretend you are not.
Yeah, I'm the skeptical engineer here. I'm like, okay, so you told me it has quantum woo in it, but explain a little bit more that my engineering brain can understand.
So we need a direct link to you, which could be different things. It could be a photograph, for example, but that's not how we set it up. It's just data. It's something that identifies you.
A unique
clearly.
identifier.
Exactly. It will be your first name, your last name, your birth city, your birth date, and the country you live in. That even identifies a John Smith as an example. When we have that, we can place that into our system. That is, I would argue, it's at least one of the most powerful sources of quantum energy on Earth. We place it in there, and in that moment, it's not that the system sends energy to you. You're in the field. That is the quantum entanglement. At that moment, you're in the field, literally, and it doesn't matter where you go, you're in the field. And the big breakthrough was that we were able to create it in a way with the digital front end that you have 100% control over it. Because you say, okay, I want to pause it, or I want to run it. Okay, that's your choice. You want to run it. Okay, and then you can even increase the energy levels. You can say, okay, I want a booster of 4,600 on the Hawkins scale, which is the highest booster we've ever had so far. Not available for new users, but over time you get unlocked.
Yeah, you turn that one on for me. So I think so.
You have access to it, and then so you say, okay, 4,600 booster because I have, I don't know, a massive performance and I need to be fully alert and all of that. And you pick your frequency, right, that you want. I don't know, you run a marathon, you use the Olympic performance or the world champion frequency. You have a talk, use the brain support frequency. I don't know, whatever you want. Something for sleep you can set. And then that gets moved to your data set in the system and basically signals, oh, okay, so he wants brain support at 4,600. Within 5 minutes, the system updates, and then you're in the field with that information of that frequency and the energy level, and then it's implemented. And it's difficult for the brain to understand sometimes because we're so not used to such technology being around. But if we went back to the 1600s right now and we would tell people what we can do with our smartphones, they would think we're the crazy guys. And you could even go back with me, I think, 10 years, and we would tell them what we could do with AI, and they would also think we're crazy. That's pretty much how it works.
Yeah. I'm getting some parts of it. So you have a strong quantum energy that you can put frequencies in. How do you know what frequency is what?
So we have capabilities in order to actually see that. And we know and have proven that many times scientifically that we can copy any frequency that exists, for example, a molecular frequency, with our technology one-on-one. Let's say
it's like magnetic resonance of of covalent bonds or something?
No, it would be a molecular frequency, for example, of a vitamin C pill, of a healing plant, or frankincense.
What's a molecular frequency measured with?
Well, you can visualize it in water, for example. That's one way to do it, but you can actually also see and feel the vibration of it. And
so, like, I'm a hardcore physicist in this exercise here. So Okay, so we're talking about we see. So this is the color of it. We're talking like spectroscopy. Like how do I, as a hardcore physicist, know that there's a frequency?
I don't think as a hardcore physicist you would be able to measure any of these things because you have not even invented a quantumometer. So you couldn't. You couldn't
Okay.
even.
That's a fair answer.
Even though I think and I hope that within the next 5 years we'll actually have that.
Okay.
Some of the things, physics is playing catch up. We must realize that.
And so then how did you do it if physics doesn't know how to do it?
Because we have capabilities to actually see that, and then we can
To see this with your biology.
And then you can measure the results of that. For example, so what ends up in the core of the cell if you ingest a vitamin C pill is the vibration of the vitamin C.
Mm-hmm.
That very same vibration of the vitamin C we can copy and basically imitate the result, and then you see the cells basically react to that.
Okay.
Because we're a biofield, and that's how you can bypass the digestive tract, for example, with certain frequencies. That's pretty much how it works. And since we can copy that frequency, we can also make it available through the quantum upgrade. But now we don't have a vitamin C frequency there. We have specific other frequencies. And you can see and test the results. So, for example,
a big thing.
The brain support frequency that I talked about, for example, was carefully crafted and developed in order to support specific parts of the brain. And if it didn't work, it didn't work. It's very easy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it works in 100% of the cases in a significant way and does exactly what it's intended to do.
And now I have to step out of my skeptical physicist hat here, but there is something called the holographic model of reality, and there's pretty good evidence for that, which would provide one possible mechanism for the ability to do stuff like that. And there's a whole bunch of other things out there that are in the realm right on the cusp of, is it quantum woo or is it quantum PhD biology? And they're lining up surprisingly well. So I can understand that. And one of the things about quantum, since there is no time, there is no space, why didn't you just turn it on for the whole planet and be done with it and go do something else?
That's a great question. And we've actually gotten that question before. And we've also gotten the question, couldn't you just develop a frequency for everything?
It's 42.
It's a great question, right? Every kid would probably also ask that question, but it's not possible on various levels. And the first question to answer is because there's free will. And that's actually one of the things that we very carefully look at, very carefully, because you're not allowed to use or turn on the quantum upgrade for a business that you don't own or you have the rights to make that decision for, as an example. People may say, well, just give it to Pfizer, then they become a better company. It's still their choice, right? It's their choice. If they want to make that choice, they can make that choice. I know.
That pesky integrity thing. I get it.
So same
I'm
thing
actually
is
with you.
Same thing is true for people, really. We could not blast the planet because then we wouldn't be any better than anyone else manipulating things. And so everyone that wants it can have it.
People have a right to choose to be evil. And if they don't have that right, then you can't choose to be good. Right? And that's one of the reasons why no amount of anyone complaining, yelling, bullying can make someone do something and remain in integrity, right? And that's just a fundamental condition of reality, right? So I actually appreciate that. And I mean, throughout all of recorded history, there's always been like dark sorcerers and bad energy people, and there's whole manuals written for how to curse people and things like that. And that's not my specialty. That's not my area of study. But it seems like we can negatively affect others against their will. We can do it with bullets, and probably some of the more esoteric-minded people are doing it with weird quantum stuff. How do you explain that?
I would just say I would really move on from that question and say, evil things can be done and good things can be done as well. The free will is very important, and I want to rather stress the possibilities we have right now. And that is something where I think we need to be eye-opening to people, because there's too many people that still don't believe this can work, yet it does work. Look at the science, everyone. Look at the research, because we have the capability to change on a really, really big level the energy and harmonize it so that electromagnetic fields, as one of the many factors that we can positively influence, wouldn't have a negative effect anymore. Right. If there was, let's say, a T-Mobile that would say, okay, we're going to become the first network that is literally EMF free, right? Or at least EMF positive.
EMF free,
right?
It'd just be beneficial EMFs.
Exactly. So we could support that. The technology is there. It could be done in a very cost-effective way. It could be done with electric cars on a massive scale. So that is the possibility. The only reason why we're not yet, as a Quantum Upgrade, a multi-billion-dollar company is, first of all, we've just existed for a few years. And the second is because the vast majority of the people out there have not heard of it and couldn't even imagine in that moment right now that this can work. That is the only blockage. And by the way, I don't care about that. What I care about is that we help people and that we can really shift certain things. But again, it would need to come through a pull. If a T-Mobile wants to make a change, then they can. We're happy to help them. If people on an individual level want to make a change and help themselves and their family, they can. The technology is out there.
The reason I'm asking about the kind of dark stuff is that I've found in energy healing communities, things like that, there can be a little bit of Pollyanna. Like, oh, wow, everything is all, love and roses. And that's actually not how reality works. The reason the yin yang symbol is half dark and half white is that everything is not all light. And many of the technologies that I've played a hand in building, like Web 1.0 and some things around cloud computing and all, they've all been used for great good and for surveillance and for oppression and all sorts of bad things, right? So anytime there's a new technology, the computer hacker in me says, how do I, number one, know that someone's not already using it against me? And number two, what is my defense setup so that I maintain my biological and spiritual sovereignty? Like, I want to be in charge of my own state. It's at the very definition of biohacking. Yeah. So that means I have to be aware of threats, not freaked out, reactive, and fearful, but just aware so that I can choose to intelligently counter them. And what you're doing is you're countering the negative effects of EMF. That's what Lila Quantum does, and a bunch of other things.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm just asking about these other areas of negativity that people have. What does Lila Quantum do for that? Like, if people are sending mean thoughts to me, is that going to do something?
Yeah, so it's all about potentially harmful and destructive frequencies, and indeed, mean thoughts are some of those things, right? And there's stressors out there. There's things that get displayed through the narrative, through TV, certain messages, certain fears, because those are low vibrational states. If we step back and remember the work of Dr. David Hawkins, right? Oh, yeah. Power versus force. He set up this consciousness scale. And the low vibrational states are anger, shame, guilt, fear, right? And if we vibrate in that, that's what we will have in our lives. And then probably we're very receptive to certain, I don't know, fear-mongering or whatever else people
You're more programmable.
Negative. Yeah. And if we can get out of those states, go into higher states, then that goes right through us. It doesn't even bother us. And that's pretty much what we've been able to do and figure out, and how we strengthen the biofield in a way that it not only has physically positive effects, but also on an energetic level, basically makes us be so expanded energetically and so strong that none of these things matter. And we literally become a tractor field for more of the positive. And
now you're sounding more like Joe Dispenza, who's going to be on stage with you at the Biohacking Conference, a good friend with really powerful work. You can change your energy field, and you can change it to be an attractor. And I'm friends with some of the secret people, and just lots of people in the field, same as you. Does using Quantum Upgrade or the Lila Quantum devices, does it change meditation? Does it change access to altered states? Does it work with psychedelics?
Great question. Yes and yes. So let's talk about meditation first. So people can actually, at the booth at your biohacking conference, for example, come to our booth and then they put their hands in the block. And what I usually tell them is, have you meditated before? And when they say yes, okay, just close your eyes for a minute and be aware there's tons of people around, right? It's not the best place to meditate, but they get deeper into meditation in this 1 minute than they would get at home in like 10 minutes because of that field. And every energy healer, and we have hundreds and hundreds of energy healers across the globe that are using our technology, has a benefit from it. And I'm arguing also Joe Dispenza would benefit from it, and not because he's not capable. He's very capable, but there's others out there that are at least as capable as he is. They are still using it. Why? Because it helps them at their level. It's not that if you're very new to meditation, it helps you. But if you're very advanced, it still helps you because it works like an assistant on that level. So it's then certain things you don't need to take care of with your energy field that you can focus on other things. That's pretty much how it works.
Some people get really triggered when in heavily meditated. Like, here's a way to get to the state faster than meditation. Like, but you have to meditate. And then I just look at them like, did you drive here? And they say yes. And I say, but you have to walk. It's like, how dare you? How lazy of you to use a tool? And there isn't a counter argument to that, right? It's normal and healthy to use effective techniques and technologies and tools and knowledge in order to do what you want to do and to save energy so that you can put the energy elsewhere. So I have no issues with that. My experience.
And by the way, you can still meditate, right? So it's, no one says, just use the quantum upgrade and stop doing yoga and meditation. Go ahead and do that too.
You just get more benefits in less time.
Why
right?
not? Yeah.
So it's like, hurry, do yoga faster. Okay. If I only needed a half hour yoga and I got the same results as an hour, like I'll spend the extra half hour drinking coffee and it's okay. Right. Okay. Now, if I wanted to quantum upgrade the danger coffee beans, how would I do that?
Well, there is a way that we would have, it's not publicly available, that we could.
Why have you not shared this with me?
So
I'm angry. I'm kidding.
We can do something like that, and it could also be done with the Lila quantum technology. There is ways to do it, but it's not publicly available. Okay. Right now with a quantum upgrade, you could not charge a physical object other than your phone or your car. Those are possible at the moment. It's just system limitations at that point. You couldn't charge your glass of water for that. You would need a block.
Got it. Well, fortunately.
But we would have a way, let's say if you have different packages with serial numbers of the danger coffee, we would need to do some testing, which is better, but we could do the quantum upgrade.
I'd be up for working with you on that. And it's not like the danger coffee beans aren't already energetically enhanced, because I know how to do that sort of thing. By the way, guys, I don't really talk about that very much, but yeah. So there's intent, and there's sometimes reasons that companies just grow, right? And it's because intention actually is real and it matters. You just have to know how to use it. So I like tools that make my intention easier and stronger and require less effort, because at the end of the day, all life is lazy, which means we don't want to use more energy than we take in. Shocking, right?
Indeed.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about doing that. I have all these cool questions. Okay, this is a great one. Is the human body a transmitter or a receiver or both? And how does quantum upgrade work with that?
For me, it's definitely both, right? And it's mainly, for me, actually the biofield. Because, if we just look at the physical body, we miss out on what's also there. So I know you look at both, but I want people out there to realize that, right? So we brush our teeth in the morning, we take a shower in the morning, and we take in our supplements, but we need to take care of our biofield, because that's our energy. And on that level, indeed, we can send energy. We do that all the time with every thought that we think that ripples through the morphogenetic field. And we also receive energies. So it's just, everyone can just prove that by going into a restaurant and paying attention. Just go in, don't walk further, stand there and look at some of the tables and just tune in. And you may notice, wow, there's a tense energy because some people are maybe in a fight. Maybe there's some loving energy because there's two lovers there, and you don't need to see them kissing, but you pick up these energies. So we are receivers and we're transmitters all the time. And that's one of the problems right now, is that the conscious mind is just like 5 to 10% of the brain and what we actually realize, and the rest is the subconscious mind. We pick up so much through the subconscious mind, and it runs the show if we don't pay attention. And if we can vibrate in a, let's say, in a prosperity frequency or in a healing frequency, for example, then it vibrates through our whole system and not just in this conscious part. That's the trick. Yeah. That's the trick of the quantum upgrade. Because if we can change our frequency state, that is what we invite into our lives. That's what people haven't understood, how this reality works. Because I cannot make a change in the outer world unless I make a change in the inside. It's as if I look in the mirror and I want to just make my hair in the mirror. It just doesn't work. I have to make it within me. And that's really the trick. It's not that difficult to understand, but that it requires to look at that and to rewire yourself for that.
Cool. All this stuff is so hard to imagine, and it's by design. Like our very picture of reality that we started building at the moment of conception, right? Your biological systems are going, well, what is this place? How do I figure all this stuff out? And you're not supposed to be able to perceive quantum stuff. It's the very lowest level of reality, and it doesn't matter for survival. It's completely irrelevant. So the whole process of meditation, of becoming enlightened or just being on a spiritual path, is learning how to become aware of things that are unnecessary for base survival. And it's why most societies have cloistered some number of people. Hey, you go live in the cave for your entire life and take notes, and then pass it down to the next guys. And maybe after 1,000 years, we'll figure out some of this stuff. We're just doing it faster with tech, and now we're building tech that lets you intervene and accelerate things. And I think it's kind of a cool time to be alive for that.
That is really true. And, also, it's not just about the consciousness work. Really, it's also about physical optimization and maximization of my performance, because now we have world champions, Olympians, X Games winners, professional motocross riders that are using our stuff because it helps them. They don't care how it works. They just care that it does work. And that's why they're using it. We have clinics now across the world that are increasingly starting to use our stuff in stem cell therapy and ozone therapy and just trading their patients. It's coming out there because it does help. And just because we don't understand maybe 100% of how it all works, well, what do we really understand 100% of? I mean, I don't understand 100% of how AI works and how it does all that.
Neither do the people who make it.
Get a little bit of it, but I don't understand 100% of how the body works.
I had so much fun at a consciousness conference recently. I'm on a panel with a bunch of scientists, and I am a scientist of the computer variety. But the question was one of those questions from moderators that are like kind of boring. Like, what is the role of science in spirituality? And it's just for everyone going down the line to say something in the mic. And I'm like, I know I'll be misquoted on this. And I said it to the audience. I said, science is bullshit. And all of these, PhD scientists are like, jerk. And I'm like, no, you got to listen. Science is looking to tell the best story we can about what we observe, right? And that means it's almost always wrong because there's another story that's even better that's coming along. And almost everything we believed 30 years ago in science has been disproven, right? It has been changed. So science is like a cult, especially when you use the capital S, and because you're in a human body, you reject anything that doesn't agree with your story. And reality is there are different stories that work, and some of them are more useful than others. And I look at science that way, where we're continually evolving our understanding and our story of reality. Doesn't mean that science is right. It's a process of understanding. And true to my word, the New York Times, of course, misquotes me and says, Dave says science is bullshit. I'm like, see, guys, I told you I predicted the future using quantum. Okay, right? But the idea there, for anyone who's listening, if you're saying, well, my scientific beliefs, which you're probably wearing like a cloak of armor to stop from feeling or thinking about things, they are not correct, right? The standard model of physics is not 100% accurate. We do not know what the F is going on in there. We just have a really good way to predict mostly what's going on. And it's the 1%, or actually I think about 6% in the standard model of physics. It's that 6% where all the magic happens. That's where the new discovery, the new learning, the better stories, they are science, right? And they may be wrong too, because what we have now isn't 100%. And the fact that there is one outlier that is unexplained makes it true that we don't know what's going on. It just means we think we know what's going on. And it's that sense of safety and not knowing that allows people to expand and to be curious and to explore. Say, look, I'll try something and see if it works or not. And one of the things that you do that I think is pretty cool is for Quantum Upgrade, you just give people 15 days for free. So then, okay.
For your audience. Otherwise, they would not get 50.
Oh, no, okay. That's only for, okay, well, there you go. I thought, I didn't know we were that special. So guys, that is something that Philipp is doing. And I don't remember the code, but I have it written down on my notes. Do you know what it is off the top of your head?
I would say it's called Dave. And
it usually is.
It's 15 days for free. And there's not even a credit card required. So we made that change a few weeks ago. So
that's legit.
Don't even provide any payment method, anything. Just try it. Go try it.
Okay.
Then you need to sign up, though, if you want to keep it.
All right. Here's how it works. quantumupgrade.io/Dave. And that's going to give you 15 days to say, do I notice a difference? And if you're highly skeptical, saying, well, I could be placebo, blah, 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 here's what to do. Turn it on, set it up however you want to do it, and then ask a few people after 15 days who are close to you in your life what they've observed. And don't tell them that you did anything special. Say, have you seen anything different? See what they do. Right? You're probably going to get some interesting information that way. And you could also say, did I feel something? But then you can worry, oh, it might be placebo. Well, if so, and you think it's placebo usually lasts for about 6 weeks. So what you would do then is you would sign up for the first month and keep running it and see if you still feel the changes. My one caution would be any performance enhancement technique, if you use it consistently, becomes your new normal in about 6 weeks. And the first time I took smart drugs, I learned about this. I was in my mid-20s, terrible brain fog. And I bought a bunch of expensive smart drugs from Europe. I took them for a week and thought, God, I just wasted all that money. And I stopped taking them. And then the next day, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm struggling to find words. And I realized that when I was taking these things, I just felt so normal, right? And I've been on things like modafinil, which is a performance-enhancing cognitive enhancer. I've made it a big part of the biohacking world. I've been on that for 25 years most days, and relatively low dose, because it consistently works. And I notice my brain just works that way all the time. But if I stop taking it, then, oh, wow, that's right. My brain used to work that way. So if you start using Quantum Upgrade after about 6 weeks, you're going to feel like, wow, like things are always like this. And I think that's worth it. That also happens when you eat well, you stay hydrated, you get good sleep. Like that's how you're supposed to feel. So I would really encourage you, give it a try. It is something I do use. It's something that I have turned on for the biohacking conference that's happening this week here in Austin. 4,000 people, they'll all be in the field. And I'm also doing things with my own intention and other stuff you don't need to know about. But the reality is I'm doing everything I can think of or imagine to create the most amazing experience there is. And I'm happy to go quantum. I'm happy to change the lighting frequencies in the hotel and to feed you good protein and all that. It all goes together. And so how do you stack the odds in your favor that you have the most amazing life you can have? I truly believe in this stuff. I actually use it. And my kids have pendants. This stuff is real. So Leave the Quantum's legit. And it's quantumupgrade.io/Dave. And because you listen to the show, you're getting that 15 days. So you have nothing to lose and you don't have to put your credit card number in. You didn't even tell me that, Philipp. That's cool. So thank you for creating something interesting and curious and for just continuing to push back against all the people who say that can't be, therefore it isn't. Those people don't know science.
See you next time on the Human Upgrade Podcast.